Welcome back to Wire and Active. Before going to the break, I told you that we'll have a special guest today in our studio. The guest is Mr. Faiz Ahmed Shuja. He's a cybersecurity expert, and with him we'll discuss what are the threats which are faced by government and military organizations in this regard. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Shuja. How are you?
Good.
So can you tell our viewers what are the threats which the government organizations and military organizations face?
Okay, if we talk about military networks and military organizations, they are regarded very much secure as compared to the threats on the internet. Since they are running private networks and private frequencies, it's very difficult for different attackers to attack military networks. But there are other various government departments which pretty much are on the internet, and they face similar threats as other organizations on the internet. But if we specifically talk about military networks, they are very much secure as we discussed.
So what sort of threats do they face?
Basically, they usually face very targeted attacks on their network, and if usually when there is an attack on the military network, attacker has to do a lot of research and lot of activity to gain access to a private network. So it's relatively very much secure, but once they have access to the military network, it's usually it's very difficult for them to get into that network, but they have to do a lot of activity to get into that network.
Okay, and how often do the government and military networks have to face such kind of incidents?
Usually such attacks happen with the help of insiders. Whenever we have seen that there has been a compromise of a military network, there has been an insider involved, because usually it's done through social engineering or gaining access to a military network so that attacker can gain access to the network.
So can you quote any incidents which might happen?
Recently, I think there was an attack on the Pentagon when some hackers got the access to the new F-25 airplane series. They got access to their whole plan which they were planning to build. So there have been some attacks, but if we talk about the Pakistani military, we haven't seen any attacks on the Pakistani military network.
So is there any international organization which is made for the prevention of such incidents?
Yeah, basically there are various international laws which can be applied on different countries across, but there has to have a proper investigation of such attacks, and once such kinds of attacks that we have seen on military or government networks, they are very sophisticated and are very difficult to track. Like even those IP addresses, if you see the attacks IP address that they have come from, if you trace back, they basically land upon different countries across the world. So it's very difficult to track where those attacks have come from.
So I was going through some newspapers and I got this information that the Pakistani government websites were infected.
Yeah, recently there was a lot of increase in malicious code which infected the websites. So usually the developers which develop the websites are not fairly into securities.
So what you mean to say is that we don't actually need securities from hackers only. It's basically the developers also which can cause problems for the websites.
Exactly, like basically it's a layered approach. Security is a layered approach. So we need to secure every layer. The developers who are building those websites, the people who are putting those websites on the server, and the server that the website is hosting. So basically you have to secure each layer, and we have seen a lot of mistakes like this, that developers don't really care what they're coding, what they're putting on the website, and this causes infections like these that we have seen.
Okay, so now coming specifically to hackers, now we've had incidents of our hackers attacking different websites of different other countries, and other countries attacking our websites. Now how often do we have such incidents, and what role do these incidents play in the relationship of these countries? Because we have a lot of tensions going on between Pakistan and India, and if our hackers attack some of their websites, that will create a problem, certainly.
Right, like we have seen in past between the Kashmir issue and the different Gaza issues that our hackers and the Indian hackers have defaced either websites, and recently when there was a Mumbai attack, a lot of Pakistani hackers defaced Indian websites and the Indian defaced our websites, but there haven't been any major attack which have caused any political relationship to affect the political relationship. But recently there was attack, a DOS attack on the Estonia, if you see, when there was war going on, and Estonia accused Russia of attacking the Estonia's network, and that was a very large scale network. Even the whole Estonia was down, their whole internet was down.
But do we have something like this going on the official level? Like, I mean, do the governments of different countries have these groups of hackers who purposely do these things?
There have been news that government do support such groups, and basically there can be a possibility that both the governments supporting some groups to do such attacks, but there haven't been any credible report.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Faiz.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much
you
for being here. So this was Mr. Faiz Ahmed Shuja talking to us about cyber warfare, and he was telling us how important it is to deal with cyber attackers. It's time for a very short break right now, but when we come back, we'll talk to some international experts on the same subject. See you after the break.